Well, greetings and welcome, everyone. My name is Misheard from Misheard Song Lyrics, and this is Season 2, Episode 88, and our first ever Beatles misheard song lyric. The misheard song lyric is, I wanna hold your ham. And the correct lyrics is, I wanna hold your hand. Ham, hand, And for me, since I'm food motivated, I want to make sure if I am letting someone else hold my ham, it's better with someone that I trust, right? So you listen to it, it definitely sounds like he's saying ham. So let's talk about the song, a little bit about the Beatles, especially for some youngins that never heard of them before or just heard about them, as well as the background of the song. All right, so let's start. I Want to Hold Your Hand is a song by the English rock band called The Beatles and written by Beatles bandmates John Lennon and Paul McCartney and recorded all the way back on October 17th, 1963. So this October, it will be 58 years old. Wow. And the big thing about it did quite well. So first of all, they share in Wikipedia and other sites that with advance orders exceeding about 1 million copies in the UK, I Want to Hold Your Hand would have gone straight to the top of the British record charts on its day of release back on November 29th, 1963, had it not been blocked by the group's other first million seller, She Loves You. So the only thing that was stopping this from hitting number one with the song is another previous number one that's still in the charts as their previous UK single, which now has had also a resurgence of popularity following intense media coverage of the group. And so it took about 2 weeks to dislodge its predecessor, but I Want to Hold Your Hand stayed at number one for 5 weeks and remained in the UK top 50 for 21 weeks in total. So it did quite well after it beat its own other song by the Beatles. So first, did you know it was actually also the group's first American number one hit, entering the Billboard Hot 100 chart all the way back on January 18th, 1964 at number 45 and starting what is called the British invasion of the American music industry. So when this hit number one in the US, it was the first time a British group topped the charts there since 1962 when they said Telstar by the Tornadoes did it. Until the Beatles came along, most British groups that had hits in America came and went pretty quickly. The Beatles kicked off the British invasion, which led to many other famous British groups like the Rolling Stones, or as some people like to call it, the Stones, the Kinks, the Who, as well as, of course, the Beatles. So in the US back in February of 1964, it topped the Hot 100 and stayed there for 7 weeks before being replaced by She Loves You, their own song, which, flip-flopped here in the US, and it remained on the Billboard chart for 15 weeks. I Want to Hold Your Hand actually became the Beatles' best-selling single worldwide, selling more than 12 million copies. Wow. And then in 2018, Billboard magazine named it the 48th biggest hit of all time on their Billboard Hot 100. So hit number 48, it's in the top 50. And then in the UK, it was the second highest single of the 1960s behind, you guessed it, She Loves You. Isn't that funny? Oh, okay, so song background. Let's delve into what the song is about other than not holding someone's ham. So per songfacts.com, John Lennon and Paul McCartney wrote this in Jane Asher's basement. So I'd never heard of Jane Asher until I did more research on this. So she was an actress who became Paul's first high-profile girlfriend and later fiance. And she was known for appearing in several movies, TV shows, and stage productions. She also became an authority on baking and has her own business selling party cakes and supplying baking and decorating equipment. She and Paul had broken up in 1968, but what I'm going to bring you down is this doozy of a story that kind of takes us out but brings us back. There is significance of why I'm telling the story because of the song. So on April 18th, 1963, a then 17-year-old Jane Asher was, I guess she was interviewing the Beatles at the Royal Albert Hall in London, England. And I think that's when she and, I guess, sparks flew, she and Paul McCartney. And after that, they began their 5-year relationship. And in December 1963, McCartney took up residence at Jane's Asher's family, I guess, townhouse on Wimpole Street, and stayed there until the couple moved into McCartney's own home, located in St. John's Wood in 1966. I didn't know this too. I thought this was interesting. McCartney wrote several Beatles songs inspired by Asher, including And I Love Her, so there's that song, as well as You Won't See Me, I'm Looking Through You, and We Can Work It Out. All good songs. And then McCartney and Asher announced on Christmas Day of 1967 that they were engaged to be married, and in February and March of 1968. So that they said, on Christmas Day 67, we're going to get married the next year, February, March, springtime. Well, the beginning of the end happened in mid-1968. Asher returned back to London from an acting assignment in Bristol, apparently, a day earlier than expected, and actually found McCartney in bed with a Francie Schwartz. I don't know about you, but if it was me, I don't know, I would have gone ape shit all over that. Maybe did a Lorena Bobbitt, I don't know. So found him in bed. And then on July 29th, 1968, surprise, surprise, Asher announced publicly to the BBC that her engagement to McCartney has been called off. And of course, it was an announcement that only shocked many people, that actually shocked many people, but it included McCartney himself. Come on, Paul. She found you in bed with another woman. So at the time of her announcement of calling off the engagement, McCartney was at his father's home with the gal he was caught in bed with, Schwartz, by his side. Okay. Although Schwartz says in her testimony that she confirmed that Asher did see them in bed together, but claims that that wasn't the sole reason for the breakup and that the couple were actually on the verge of separating prior to Asher's walking in. But it didn't help, Francie, that you're in bed with Paul. Okay. Authors Hunter Davies and Barry Miles state that the relationship always had several problems, and I can see this coming. One of them being that McCartney wanted Asher to give up her acting career, oh boy, after they married, which Asher refused to do. And by all means, she should. She doesn't have to just say, well, I'm going to be a kept woman now that I'm going to be married to you. Another problem that was brought up regarding the relationship is McCartney's drug use. So I always thought it was John Lennon that did all the drug use, but I didn't realize McCartney did as well. And so the drug use and, of course, frequent womanizing did not help. And then after returning to London from a 5-month acting tour of the U.S. in May of 67, Asher said she found that McCartney had changed so much. I can imagine. And he apparently was on LSD, which says which I hadn't shared. I was jealous of all the spiritual experiences he'd had with John. There were 15 people dropping in all day long. The house had changed and was full of stuff I didn't know about. I would have said bye-bye as well. So the reason why we're talking about Jane Asher and Paul, other than the scandalous, of the reason of their breakup, was how the song was made. So Jane had a brother named Pete, of course, Pete Asher, who teamed up with Gordon Waller to form the duo of Peter and Gordon. And McCartney wrote their hit song, A World Without Love, okay? So Jane's brother Pete recalls in a 2010 interview with Gibson.com the two Beatles penning the song at his home. Because remember, they moved in with, I guess, her parents and her. Here's what he says. My mother had a practice room that she used to give private lessons or private oboe lessons when she wasn't teaching at the Royal Academy, where she was a professor. There was just a piano and an upright chair and sofa. Paul used that room to write in from time to basement for an hour or so, and Paul called me down to listen to a song they had just finished. I went downstairs, I sat on the sofa, and they sat side by side on the piano bench. That's where they played I Want to Hold Your Hand for the first anywhere. They asked me what I thought. I said, I think it's very good. Laughs, which he was right. So the rest is history of how the song was made. And then another did you know is I knew this because this was televised and it's, one of the iconic Ed Sullivan shows, really big show. Beatles performed this song on the first two Ed Sullivan Show appearances, which took place back on February 9th and the 16th in 1964. What I didn't know was there was already a media frenzy around the Beatles, which amplified many to want to watch the show. But what happened was when the Beatles were booked for the show, before they'd had that hit in the US, they actually got paid less than many other guests for their appearance. Timing is everything, right? So because it's also a very popular song, you can also know that, there's lots of covers. But we're going to, let's put a pin on that because before we go into covers, again, this is before MTV and others. So the only footage you will see of them performing this, of course, if Ed Sullivan Show or any other shows or venues that they've sang it and performed in front of TV, there's no music video per se. Okay. So who covered it? It was covered by many musicians, you can only imagine. So in 1964, Arthur Fiedler and the Boston Pops Orchestra recorded an instrumental version. And it rose to number 55 in the American chart. So it did well. Then in 1969, soul singer Al Green, love him, covered the song as well. And in 1982, funk-based Lakeside covered this song as a ballad, and it actually became a top 10 R&B hit. I'm going to have to check that out because I want to see how this works as a ballad. And then most recently in 1966, singer Manny Manuel, that's a lot of covered this song in Spanish as Dame tu mano y ven on the compilation album called Tropical Tribute to the Beatles. It did so well that the version peaked at number 13 on the Billboard Hot Latin Songs chart. And Manuel's cover led to McCartney actually receiving a BMI Latin Award in 1997. You're like, what is a BMI? I think that body mass index. That's the first thing I thought when I saw that. And anyway, so it also stands for Broadcast Music Incorporated. So it's a performing rights organization in the U.S. It collects license fees from businesses that use music on behalf of songwriters. Remember, he and John Lennon wrote the song, so they composed it. So they also do, they use music on behalf of songwriters, composers, and music publishers and distributes them as royalties to those members whose works have been performed. So because of that, and it did so well with the Manny Manuel version, Paul McCartney also got a BMI Latin Award in 1997. The last did you know is in 2019, BMI itself, this is how big an entity it is, it collected $1.28 billion in revenues and distributed about $1.196 billion in royalties. That's what I always say. Write the song, do the lyric, do the music, because you will get paid then time over, especially with these covers. And BMI's repertoire included over 1.1 million songwriters and 17 million compositions. And it's the biggest performing rights organization in the U.S. and is one of the largest such organization in the world. So other than Body Mass Index, it's Broadcast Music Inc. So lots to learn here. I love the going down that rabbit hole with Jane Asher and finding out how it was created in the basement of her parents, and then her finding him with a hussy, which the hussy also was 50% to blame. The other 50% was to Mr. Sir Paul McCartney. But hey, don't let him hold your hand. Well, keep singing those songs wrong, and we will be back next week. Bye!